Hey everyone, my name is Angela, and I am a single mom, educator, and psychotherapist that is here just to share a little bit with you about my journey to becoming debt free and basically becoming what I like to call a stable adult. Um, so I I don't know. I really enjoy watching other vloggers out there who have these channels about their finances and living their best life as an adult. So I really thought that people could benefit from hearing a little bit about my journey and what it's looked like and how I've kind of made it to financial freedom while being a career woman and single mom at the same time. So, yeah, I thought I'd just come on and start this channel to share a little bit about that. So, before I really get into it, one of the things that I want to say is I recognize that not everybody has had the same background and experience that I have, or has even lived some of the same kind of like life experiences. So, I just want to put that out there that I know that everybody's story is unique and I think that's something that I really want to hear if people are watching and commenting. I want to know how you're making it within the realm of what you do, the credentials that you have, the past, the present, and future goals that you might have, what they look like for you as I talk about some of my journey and some of my experiences so that we can compare, we can contrast, we can ask one another questions, and we can talk about it as we move forward. So, hopefully, in watching this channel, you'll comment and you'll have some things to say so we can get a conversation started amongst us. So, I just want to tell you a little bit about debt for me and what it looked like, how I got to even in debt in the first place, and you know how I got out of it altogether. Um, I think that when I started with debt was back when I was 18 years old, and I went off to college. I mean, it was what I did. I took out a student loan, and that was the first bit of debt that I had. It was also the last bit of debt that I just got rid of, and I'll talk about that more. But I started off after having gone to private school for high school, pretty much all of my school career. And I'll talk about that at another time too, what that meant for me seeing finances growing up. But yes, went to private school. My parents paid for that. And then I hit college and they were kind of like, oh, well, you're going to have to take out a loan to afford it. And that's just what I thought happened. I thought that people just had to take out a loan to make it through, to get through school. So I took out a student loan, federal student loan. And actually, my dad even did help. I say my dad because he was the one who was mostly in charge of finances in our house, which I'll talk about it another time too. But I remember him retiring from the postal service and using a good amount of that money for my first year of college. A lot of his pension he took out and used that to go towards my college funding, but it still wasn't enough. I went to a private liberal arts college and took out a student loan. I came out of undergrad with about 30 grand in student loans, which wasn't miserable, for the school that I went to that was 50,000 a year. For me to only come out with 30 grand in loans after, getting some grants and some scholarship money, but it was still a chunk of change that I had going forward with me. Then at age 24, I bought a house. Wasn't the smartest financial move because it was at a time when there were still kind of the 0% interest rates going on in 2007. And then shortly after, in 2008, is when we had the financial crisis and the market burst. And I was already like, whoa, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in over my head. I remember like being upside down on my mortgage and just not really having um, the funds to pay for that. So I refied on a house in 2011, or maybe a little sooner. I think it might have been 2009. But that took my loan out 12 years. I was also just traveling a lot in my 20s and using credit cards for that. Um, and I also remember like just taking out personal loans to buy things like furniture to furnish my house, just to stay afloat, to keep a certain lifestyle. And it was just like a bunch of consumer debt with student loan debt and then returning for a master's degree, which I kind of wasn't smart about how I did that. I also took out loans for that. Um, so there was a lot of just mismanagement of money when it came to like consumerism and consumer debt in my 20s. And it caught up with me in my 30s because I had a child. At age 30, I was just about 31 when my son was born. So it was he's 8 now. And his dad and I didn't have the strongest relationship starting off. Um, and kind of just floundered within the first year. It kind of like faltered. But thankfully, he was financially stable at the time and still wanted to be present in my son's life and still is in both regards, those things today. And that really helped me keep it moving. But I was still carrying along a lot of debt and having to figure out, how I was going to stay on my own 2 feet with this baby now, not having a partner to do that with. Then I ended up having some medical concerns. Ended up with stage 1 cervical cancer. Had to have a hysterectomy, which incurred some medical costs, even though I did have insurance from working as a teacher, which I'd been doing since 2005. I still just had to pay some minor debts there too that went along with that. And I remember looking up probably midway through my 30s and being like, wow, I'm $100,000 in debt between consumer debt and student loans. And it all happened from just mismanaging my funds. So in 2019, I decided that I was going to try to take some control of it and went ahead and looked into bankruptcy. Sure enough, after talking to a couple financial advisors and a couple of people in the field, they recommended that I file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which means I'd be able to wipe out all of that debt through the courts. They'd be able to wipe it out, and I wouldn't have to pay it back. However, it was going to greatly affect my credit score, and I was going to take a hit there. So I decided to go ahead and file. Now, the beauty of my filing was when I say $100,000 in debt, that was consumer debt and student loans. That didn't count the about $130,000 that I had on a home at the time. However, when I went to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, I was current on my home. So, really, all that needed to be included was the consumer debt, so the credit cards. I paid down the medical bills, was credit cards and personal loans, student loans. You can't file bankruptcy for. So I came out of that with really much a house that I could sell, which I ended up selling and making a small profit right around the time that COVID was hitting. Um, and a student loan, I also had that. And that was pretty much it. So what I did was I sold my house. I bought a car outright at that point from some of the profits from my home, put some of that money in savings as well. And then I just had student loan debt. Well, for a while, COVID was running rampant, which it's still out there, right? But it was really running rampant and affecting finances. So when we had the whole shutdown, I was actually able to file for unemployment from a part-time teaching job that I had. So I used my unemployment filings to kind of save up cash towards my savings and paid a good chunk on my student loans, even though they were in forbearance because of COVID. When Biden came into office and then came out with the loan waiver in October of 2021, I filed for it because I've been in education since 2005 as a teacher. I filed for it, and that was in November of 2021. And just this May of 2022 was completely forgiven for the rest of the $45,000 of my loan that I was carrying around between not having paid it off or paid it down from graduate school and undergrad. And I looked up end of May and was like, hey, here I am, debt free. So I just wanted you all to hear a little bit about my background and how that led me to getting to the point where I don't have any more debt after having a ton. And as I go forward on this channel, I really want to talk about maybe some ways that I could have avoided that and some things that have really come to mind and come to light as I think about moving forward with finances. So I don't get into debt again, and I can help others stay on a strong financial track. So hopefully you'll tune in and continue to watch as I talk more about that. Thanks for seeing this first video, and I look forward to talking more. Peace.